question is, have we actually received the urban forest management plan from them?
Well, you said we got the draft, but at the end of the day, they'll probably adjust it. But yeah, so we have.
So we do have a draft.
We have a draft.
Okay.
Yes.
But the obviously a lot of additional. I mean, I presume most of the additional money is essentially on the tree data collection piece, right?
Well, because
Yes.
there's a bottom piece of the tree
Yeah.
data collection too.
Right.
So it's really the 58.5 plus the 13.5.
Right. Right.
So actually, I guess it's kind of even
Yeah.
between the two.
Okay. Well, last question I would have, I guess, is has any of this data or the plan itself, the draft plan, been valuable to you or your team or the urban forester, or have we collected this data and it's not that practically valuable? I'm curious if you have a quick take on that. I mean, it's a big question, but
No, it is a practical use. It has its practical use. Like right now, I'm able to look at our GIS layer and look at some of the trees that we have. You know, when they come in, I just started actually, like a couple weeks, started looking into some of those, and I can see, the tree species, what size. Ideally, I should be able to say, this tree is no longer there, or we cut down the tree, right? It's an asset management piece of data. So it helps. But again, who's going to manage that? It's another piece, and we don't have the asset management system to really use the data effectively. I've been talking with HR Green into making this a more interactive and useful piece of software, our GIS. But the GIS itself is not an asset management platform. So that's, when this project was initiated, I don't exactly know what was the purpose. It gives us a full inventory, and at least we know what the city owns, and we can predict the potential cost of maintaining this.
That was the purpose.
That's the purpose.
So it will give us that. But if we use the platform, we can build on it to track what is the trend, where the failures are, how much really we need to spend, those kinds of things. But it is a multi-year.
I think we also wanted to get to, we want to get to the point, and actually maybe that's the asset management platform, maybe that's what comes out of the urban forest management plan. We really envisioned a more dynamic tool where a resident can say, hey, at this tree in the right-of-way in front of the city tree in the right-of-way in front of my house, God, I can't think the last time that thing was trimmed, and they can go to the database and be like, oh, what? It was trimmed 5 years ago and it's due to be trimmed next year. Oh, great. I don't have to make 15 calls to the city to say, when are you going to trim my tree? Because it would be there. That's the urban forest management plan says, what do we have? What's its general condition? And it helps us also, I think, when we're,
Budget.
for sure, to say, all right, how much can we reasonably trim every year? What has to be trimmed? What's really that budget number? But it also, sets expectations with residents, which I think is huge. And as we know, we have a process for if somebody says, well, the tree in front of my house isn't due to be trimmed again for 5 more years, and well, I don't like it. I want it trimmed now. Oh, we have a parklands process where if you want to pay to trim a city tree, you can get a permit to do that. But, we need to look at it. But, all of those things. It also, I think, when you say, okay, probably we have 20,000 trees. So the first thing that pops in my head is, how many trees should we have? Is that number 22,000 or is that number 18,000 or is 20 the right number? So sometimes, we have a lot of trees that have popped up over, it's this big and then 25 years later it's in your way. So it helps us manage that as well. There's a lot of consternation in this community over, it can't be we never cut a tree and it can't be we always cut a tree. It has to be something in the middle. And I think that tool helps us figure that out, and manage and say, oh, you know what? If people want to cut these 10 trees that popped up out of nowhere, we don't know where they came, they weren't here. Okay, all right, well, taking out 5 isn't going to deplete the urban forest, but we may say, oh, our urban forest has depleted and it's getting hacked away, and so no, we need to preserve. That's what I think the ultimate goal of the tool is. It was my vision.
And it can be it can do all of that. Again, we need more resources, I think, to manage it really, because it really takes a lot of effort to build it to the way that we want to see it. So, if we make the GIS live and public, a resident should be able to go in and say, what's the history on this tree? And can see the work orders and that kind of stuff, yes.
Yeah. Councilmember Quinn, you had some comments?
Yeah, in a previous meeting, I asked if this tree management plan will identify dead trees and whether or not it was in the contract, and I believe it is in the contract. And do you have an end product that can identify dead trees in our forest?
You mean like trees that are already on the ground, or
they eventually will get on the ground, but they're dead, right? Standing dead.
Yes,
And the reason I'm asking is for fire prevention and that type of thing.
On the open space areas, I don't think they were identified. I've walked a little bit into some of these open space areas, and I can see a lot of dead trees. I don't think those are counted in the inventory. But if there is a tree that looks like it's dying, it's on the inventory, and we can probably parcel the data to see what the comments are. Some of the trees that we're taking out this week, actually, we're taking a few oaks this week. Those were identified with issues on the inventory. And we validate those issues when we inspected them. When Carl went out there and inspected those trees, it was bad.
Where are those? I can't even think where we have oak trees.
Can I ask another follow-up question?
Sure.
And, I don't know if this is a direction or not, but it was pointed out by the prior council member Murdoch that the dead tree inventory should have been in their overall project. And I think it's very important that, again, for fire related issues, that we identify those and get those out as quickly or routinely as possible. Would you be able to just double check the contract and see if they delivered that to us?
Yes, I can check the contract. And I don't know if, Monica, do you know if we ask, or if the data identifies all of the dead trees?
I believe it does, but we can verify the contract. It is all the dead trees that West Coast arborists can identify in the field. So if there are more so in the parklands area that they cannot see, those would not be identified because of safety reasons as well, that they couldn't, traverse through larger open space areas.
Interesting, since that's probably where they are.
Right.
Okay. I do not have